You've probably taken panoramas with your phone before, but we're not talking about this sort of panorama, we're talking about this sort of panorama. I'll show you how to do it. G'day guys, Shane Mostyn here. I do 2 videos each and every week all about small sensor photography, that is your mobile phone, action camera and all that sort of business, and we take photos just like this. So if you're into that sort of thing, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and I'll see you twice a week. In the description down below is everything I'm talking about here today, all the apps that I use, the equipment that I use, the phones that I use, all that sort of thing. So today what we are talking about is panorama photos with your mobile device. And I'm not talking about the handheld mobile phone photo, I'm talking about this sort of photo and how I achieved it. So we're going to talk about what you need first. First of all, you're going to need a phone, and today what we're using is a Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. You don't have to have this phone. It doesn't really matter what phone you have as long as you can take photos of the stars with your phone. So that is all your iPhones, and if you've got an older iPhone, it can be the Nightcap app that you're using to do this. It can be pretty much any Android phone that exists out there as long as it's got the Pro manual mode. So that is that you're setting the shutter speed, the ISO, focusing, all that sort of thing on the phone, and that's most of them out there. So you can do this with almost any phone. But today we're using the Samsung Galaxy S21. What you're going to need is a tripod and a phone holder, and we're going to use, the way that the phone is used, it's sitting vertically in the holder. So you need to have it set up so that you can let go of the, so it's moving like this. Because the way we're going to do it is taking a series of photos at different angles, and we're going to merge them all together. So it needs to have a tripod that's going to hold it steady and let you still move it around between photos. The only app that you really need for this is the camera app that comes on your phone, and you're probably going to use PhotoPills. PhotoPills is a good app for working out where the Milky Way, that galactic core, is going to be in the night sky, and I just know that because I've used it here already, that it's going to be over there behind, and it's going to rise over the windmill. What windmill? This windmill. Let's go back in time a little bit and I'll show you how we're going to set up this photo, because it's going to be easy during the day to explain to you guys what we're going to do. This is the location that we're going to shoot at. I've already done the research, and I can tell you now that the Milky Way will come up over here, where the sun is rising over there right now. It's going to come up straight above this windmill that's here and down over this side over here towards Pyramid Hill. So what we need to do is basically work out a heap of frames to take all the way along the horizon here, and then another line up above them there. And the reason I know the Milky Way is rising over here is just with PhotoPills. I'll link up the top here of how I plan those sorts of photos and how to use PhotoPills. It's got an awesome augmented reality feature where you can see where the Milky Way will rise with in conjunction with the camera that you're using on your mobile device. I don't do any of these sorts of photos without using that tool. It's a fantastic tool. So we're going to take a series of photos across here tonight, another lot probably above it, because I don't think that the primary camera on the S21 Ultra is wide enough to capture all of it. Interesting thought, you might be able to do it with an external lens. Stay tuned, we might do something with that. But I think a row of photos, then a second row of photos, and you need to overlap them. And what I mean by overlapping them is you want to overlap every single photo by at least 50%. No less than 50%. So that the software, when we put it all together on the computer, doesn't need to work as hard to put them all together. Make sense? Sweet as. We'll take some photos. Now, to actually start taking these photos on the Galaxy S21 Ultra, we're going to go into the camera, we're going to scroll across to more, go up to Pro mode, and then we're going to change the shutter speed to 30 seconds. We're going to change the ISO to 3200 so it's nice and bright, and we're going to change the manual focus all the way to the end so it's at infinite focus. It's not perfect, but it's pretty bloody close. And that's it. We're going to take a photo. So once this photo is being taken, we're going to move it halfway through that frame and take another one, then halfway through that frame and take another one. What we want is the photos to overlap nicely so that when we merge them together later on the computer, it's going to be able to do it without too much of a struggle. We'll probably end up with too many photos, but I'd rather have too many than not enough, and we've just wasted our time. Alright, so that's taken, let's go and take some more. Well, I've just taken a series of photos all the way across, and I can see the horizon in all of those photos after it's taken. So I've taken the photo, you can see the ground and you can see the star starting to come up. What I can't see though in any of the photos is the top of the galactic core as it's going across horizontally. So what I need to do is loosen the tripod and angle this up just slightly and tighten it up again. And we're going to do exactly the same thing again, bringing it around. So what we'll have then is a series of photos across the bottom, and then halfway up that we'll have another series of photos, and they're all going to overlap. Same thing again across the way. Now that's all done, there's really nothing else out here for us to do. So we'll take these photos back, put them on the computer, into Lightroom on the desktop, and we'll merge them all into a pretty cool bloody photo. Let's go and do that. Now we've taken all those photos, we're going to bring them into Adobe Lightroom on the computer. Now, the way to get them off your Samsung onto a Mac, if you're a Mac user, a lot of you guys have suggested Samsung DeX, and I've had some different sort of experiences with that. It worked for me for the first, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times, and then it just doesn't work, and doesn't matter how many times I check the settings on the phone and check the settings in DeX, it just doesn't bloody work for me. So I've gone back to using the Android file transfer system, and it works just fine. So I brought them in, put them into Lightroom, and now we're going to go through and have a look at how they're all set in Lightroom, and I'm going to show you how to select the ones that we want to use for making the panorama. So here are the photos in Lightroom, and you can see here I've selected some and I've not used some. So I'm using these ones here. I did a little bit of light painting over there, and we're just not going to use that. But the rest of these here, you can see here I've missed out like that one and that one. I'm not going to use those because I get the same image in other photos and it's not going to bring too much to it. You can see where the core starts moving over. I'm going to use those photos. So this one here, down here a bit further, you can see the sequence of photos. I don't need to use those ones, but I started using them here because it adds up from the previous photo. So I'll have the whole arc going over. So that's all of those there. I've highlighted all the ones there. Just hold shift and then hold all of them and click on all of them. Then right click and go up to photo merge and go into panorama photo merge. Now this can take a little bit of time to get the photo built. This will take a bit of toing and froing. Here's the first one. I'm using the spherical sort of merge, and we'll see how that works. And there's a cylindrical one. Sometimes these work, sometimes they don't. That one there looks kind of funky. We'll use that boundary warp to see if we can straighten it out, and quite often this will get it really close to what I'm after. We'll try the perspective one as well, and it didn't like it. It's not enough images there for it to do that. So sometimes you've got to go back in, pick other photos and try it again. So these photos here I know worked for this one. We'll go with a spherical one, and we'll bring that boundary warp up and see if we can flatten that down, and that looks pretty bloody good as well. If you're unsure, just hit that auto crop there, and you should be right. You can see some parts there where it's tried to merge and it hasn't done it really well, but we'll let this merge now. It's creating it for us. Now that that's finished merging them all together, that looks pretty good. I think you'll agree that from a phone is just bloody sensational. So you can see here there's a couple little problems that it's had merging some photos together. And that's because I didn't take enough photos. I didn't overlap it enough in those spots there. So you can see there's a little bit of a rectangle here. There's probably a little bit like this in the overlap here that's not quite right. So through the center there, it probably struggled a little bit with it. But if I was to do it again, I would probably just take more photos and it would be totally fine. So let's have a look at the quick edit on this. This is still a DNG file, so I probably didn't tell you this earlier. I shot all this in RAW, and the RAW gives us more flexibility. You don't have to shoot it in RAW. It doesn't matter if you do or you don't. It just gives us more flexibility when we start the edit. So we'll go over here and have a look at the contrast. I'm going to increase the contrast, and as I do this with all of the Milky Way photos that I take, it's always about that core and how much of that core I can bring out, the details in that galactic core, this area just here, all the way through this. But this right here, the center of the core, that orange gaseous cloud, that's the important part for me. So I'll increase the contrast, decrease the highlights slightly. Now the shadow slider, if I increase this too much, it starts to bring out the ground, and that's fantastic. You can start to bring out some foreground elements. But with a phone, the dynamic range on the phone is not as good as it would be on a DSLR, for example. So if I zoom in here, you can see the digital noise is just bloody horrible. So we just want to leave those shadows out so that it's a contrasted photo. Now, if we wanted foreground elements in this sort of a photo, you've just got to do some forethought about how you would do this, and you would paint it with light, as in a torchlight, and put some light out there. That way it helps with the digital noise problems that we'll have in the edit, and it will look better than what it would if we just try to recover the shadows in the edit. We're going to decrease the whites and decrease the blacks a little bit, keeping an eye on that core. See that galactic core up here? Here, let me try and point to the bloody screen. The core, you see how it's changing just there. Yeah, I like that there, but the rest of the photo's gone a bit too dark. I'm just going to increase that slightly. I'm happy with that there. We'll increase the clarity slider and the dehazing slider oh so slightly. Let's go and zoom in up here and have a look at the noise. There's a fair bit of noise here. There's even a bit of artifacting, which I haven't seen on the S21 before. That's interesting. I'm going to increase that luminance slider for the noise reduction. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Just going to have a look in here. I thought I just saw some dead pixels. You can see there's a little bit of star trail there. That's not the end of the world. Got some yellow dots out here. That's unusual. I wonder if I'm starting to get some dead pixels on this camera. Anyway, it looks like some sort of plane or something there flying. Might have even bumped the tripod there by the look of it. See those stars with the tails on them? Looks like I might have bumped the tripod. But doesn't matter. If you weren't zooming in there, it doesn't matter. The principle of this is exactly the same. So now that I'm happy with how that looks for the most part, you can try adding the profile corrections into this, but it's not going to work because the camera's quite new. So it's not on there yet. I'm just going to see if, what we're going to do. We're going to put some paint in, use the brush tool right at the top here, the editing tool, the local editing tool, and I'm going to just brush across the core, and it's doing nothing. It's because the haze is there. Actually, I want the haze to be up, I want the clarity to be up as well. What I will often do with this, you can see the mask overlay down the bottom here. You can see exactly what I'm doing. It's starting to get a little bit too thick, so I'll roll that size of that down a little bit. And I'll turn that mask overlay off again. I'm going to increase the temperature a little bit, not very much, it's still a raw file, so it's going to punch it pretty hard when you do that. Increase the tint just slightly as well, and the clarity is already up, the dehazing's up. I think they're done with that, and that's actually pretty good. I think what we struggled with a little bit here was the slight amount of cloud, and you can see some cloud along the horizon out here. Now if I zoom in there, you'll see it up behind the windmill there. And I think that the blending of the images was probably screwed over a little bit with the cloud moving over the time that I took these photos here versus these photos in the middle and then ones down the bottom there. The clouds would have moved that whole time. So not the ideal situation for taking the photos, but it is what it is. And that, I think, is a pretty bloody good edit. In fact, I'm just going to leave it like that. I quite like that. If you haven't seen the videos I've done recently on astrophotography with the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S21, I will leave a link right here for the S21 and down here for the iPhone. Alright guys, I'll catch you next week. See you later.